What up? What up? What up? It's your man, Sean P, coming in live. This is Sean P Experience, man. I am so excited for this episode. This is the last show of 2025. That's right. We are closing out strong with a banger, local Louisiana author right here in my backyard. And I said I would get into it. How you doing, my sister?
Hi, hi. Thank you so much for having me, Sean. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. For your official introduction, right? I have my sister, Margeaux Weston, an award-winning author, editor, and advocate for diverse literature. She has written 20th century African American history for kids, co-authored The Art of the United States, and serves as non-fiction editor for the Hugo Award-winning Fire magazine. Based in Southern Louisiana with her family, she continues to champion inclusive storytelling for young readers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's nice. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate that. So I want to ask my Southern authors this. There's always this stereotype for many decades about like Southern authors being like not as witty, not as well read, well written, as if we don't have as many skills as everybody else. How do you feel about that perspective?
Ooh, um, I'm glad you said that. To be honest, so working in publishing, I want to speak about being working in publishing as an editor and also then as a writer. As an editor, I found that it wasn't said, but just what you said is kind of that underlying kind of microaggression that you don't have this specifically like East Coast education or East Coast upbringing. So yeah, that has been difficult to maneuver on the other side of publishing and in the editing world and working with different clients and the publishers and these huge publishing houses and meeting people. As a writer, primarily working in nonfiction for middle grade. Hey, Tanya, sorry. Um, um, as an author, primarily working or writing in middle grade, it hasn't come up so much, but it absolutely has been a theme when trying to be included in the conversations and trying to get more exposure for your books and everything else. A lot of things happen on the East Coast. A lot of relationships are there, and I do feel like in some ways there's this thought that the South doesn't have as much to say or offer, but we have amazing authors across the South who I feel like are getting more recognition. And I guess in some ways, in some genres, they probably have been getting recognition. I feel like, where I am and the things that I've done, it's been kind of oh, you're from Louis, especially Louisiana. Because, all we do is eat crawfish and ride on boats and stuff. So that kind of like surprise that you're doing something literary from a bayou state has been interesting to deal with and maneuver as an author.
Yeah, sure. Whenever I think about this conversation in the past 4 years or so, specifically, some of the most award-winning authors are from the South.
Yeah.
Dr. Imani Perry, Clinton Smith, Jamila
Hmm.
Minnie, Desmond Ward. I can just keep on naming
You can keep on naming them.
the Pulitzer Prize winning, National Book of the Year award winners. These are all Southern-based writers.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in I would say like in their genres, I think you named Jasmine Ward, with literary fiction, right? I feel like there's this, in my opinion, there's this like, oh, acceptance for that in that genre that's not so evident in others. And especially when we use our own vernacular. We speak a certain way. You and I are both from the 337 area. So there are things that we say that may not come up in quote unquote literary fiction. But I found like in conversation and different things that I've done as an editor, it's like, ugh, they're kind of like looking like, well, do you want to say? I do want to say it like that, and I want, and I think it's better. Let's keep it as authentic as possible. So it's just been like a thing on the other side, and then of course working with younger audiences that I think some people are familiar with the names and they don't know that all these wonderful people are from the South and how large the South is and how incredibly talented people are from the South and particularly in Louisiana.
So, what are some things that we can do to combat that, in your opinion?
Mm. I think, and again, some genres are more accepting. Whenever you get to these levels, like, some of the people you just named, Jasmine Ward always comes to mind because big fan of her work. But whenever you get to a certain level, yeah, whenever you get to a certain level, you get the recognition and everyone realizes. But sometimes, I'll say for Eden Royce, who I'm also a big fan of, she really has done such an incredible job of making that Southern Gothic, that Gullah Geechee culture, something that has her name on it. It's kind of like she's the queen of that. And in other areas, maybe we're not so represented. So for me, writing nonfiction, I don't know how many other, I know Tanya, not a lot of people doing nonfiction for that age group. And I think the way to kind of get more exposure, and I guess I want to say get more exposure across the state. Let me start there is to we can't really show up to everything. It's kind of hard to do. It's kind of hard to do, but platforms like yours and kind of talking to other people and also having parents who, if you're watching this, you're a parent, your auntie, your uncle, your cousin, your teacher, you're somebody. There's a kid in your life who needs nonfiction books. Graphic novels, fiction, they're awesome, and we want to encourage kids to read, but we also want them to know about Fannie Lou Hamer. We want them to know about, I wrote a book about African American history. We want them to know about our heroes and our people, our elders, our ancestors. And we also want them to know that they can be centered in the story. And especially now with things being cut back and things being turned around, we definitely want our kids to have books that have them or our people, our community, the people who have shaped where we are today on the cover.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about some of the biggest movies like Sinners, some of the biggest
Mm.
books. They're using these southern stories of
Yes.
our traditions, our cultures, our food, music.
That's
Like they
right.
want these elements, but you
Yeah.
don't want us necessarily.
I think that's a fair statement. I feel like a lot of these stories, and not to say I love Sinners. The script just came out on, I forgot what website, and I watched that. Um, you know, I feel like it's such an incredible story. No hate on Sim at all, ever. But I do feel like there are Southern people who do film and screenplays and things that are not getting opportunity to tell our Southern stories. And I think the brother, what was what's his
Who,
name? Who
Ryan?
did Sim?
Ryan Coogler?
Ryan Coogler. He's from Oakland, right, or somewhere on the West
Yep,
Coast, and that's
West Coast.
awesome. And I'm sure he has Southern roots because I know I have family in the Oakland area.
He does.
Um,
He does.
but I know some people from Alabama and Louisiana in particular who have some amazing screenplays. And it would be wonderful if we could see that at the same level because we've lived centers. We've had ancestors. I've had my grandmother is 94 years old who has experienced sharecropping and experienced that world of centers. You can imagine the stories I've heard. She's 94. Um, and all of these things and those kind of stories are needed and I would love for it to be more of us who are behind the scenes who are directing who are doing these stories writing these screenplays. No hate to anybody else but we have some amazing talent um in this state and around us so that would be great.
So let me ask you about your early writing motivation, your early writing influences. Being in the South, as we said earlier, it's not Chicago, it's not Los Angeles or Atlanta. So now, I never saw art in person until I was a grown man. I didn't see that when I was a
Yes.
kid. So, like, who are
Yeah.
some of the people that influenced you to even want to do this? Is my question.
That's so interesting. Thank you for asking that. I went to Northside High School in Lafayette, Louisiana, and
All right, Vikings. All right, Vikings.
all right.
I know what you're
So,
talking
that's an incredible community in and of itself. The teachers, we have a very big um community of people. I will say that I always wanted to write. I started off writing short stories and everything else. And interestingly enough, Sean, I said I wanted to write for television. So whenever we talk about like, yeah, I was one of those kids. So, just doing journalism in high school. But I will say that I had the chance to, I worked on movies for a while. I was a PA, a scripty. I did a lot of that kind of thing. But what helped me or what made me want to write, and I have like a long, oh, that's a long story. But what made me want to write is being exposed to Black stories at an early age. Virginia Hamilton. I read Zora Neale. I'm a huge fan of Zora Neale Hurston. Octavia Butler. Somebody put those in my hands early on. It wasn't a requirement for school. It was something that, like, I don't know, my aunts had books. I was always surrounded by Black stories. I read everything, but those stories about the South made me want to write, in a way. And of course, like, I felt a calling to talk about history. Like, that's a big thing with me in things that I'm doing for 2026. And I talk about that later, but that was always very big to me. So just having those stories and hearing my grandmother talk about things, how it was in the 1930s, it's a blessing to talk to ancestors. If you have a grandparent, an auntie, a neighbor who
Yes,
is,
please,
yes,
please.
please talk to
And
them. I've
record
just,
them,
and
record them, record
right,
them.
right. So just I've always loved to listen to stories, and so when I say those people shaped me, if you know Zora Neale Hurston, she has folk tales. She has a lot of talk about hoodoo and what we would call like magical things and haints and stuff like that that influenced me. So I would say those kind of things influenced me and led me to want to tell stories. And no matter what I did, whether I worked on films and never got to be the script writer, I've always wanted to tell somebody's story. And I think that's just something that was embedded in me early on, with the books that I read.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for that. So we are here to discuss everything but influential neurodivergent people who have shaped the world. What made you want to sit down and write this?
Oh, yes. So that's mostly about people who are neurodivergent who have done things in our world. I used to teach, and at that time, now there's more of an influx, or I would say resources for people who are neurodivergent. I found out I was neurodivergent when I was an adult, and I have three sons, two of which are neurodivergent. So just trying to better understand them and better equip them, my thing was, well, who else is neurodivergent? That wasn't something that people were talking about when we were young. And exactly. So I was like, I wonder. So we started looking at that. I talked to my agent, and my agent also has a passion for that as well. And he knew that I wrote before I started writing these kind of books, like nonfiction. I wrote different articles like for ebony.com and things like that. So it was, again, I've always kind of wanted to be that kind of, but here we go, back to everything was typical. So we were kind of in alignment that that was something that I should do. Like, okay, you should pitch something like that. Doing the research and finding out that people like Simone Biles had ADHD. The guy I can't think of his name right now. I'm picturing him, but he created Pokemon. Muhammad Ali, Billie Eilish, all of these people who have found success in their own way, have differences. And I thought that was an amazing thing to kind of show kids in that age, the age group where it's really tough, like that 8 through 12 age group where they're trying to, figure out themselves, and then they go on high school and it's a whole nother thing they have to figure out. But just knowing that there are people who have the same challenges as you that have made it in their own respective ways. You don't have to be the next Billie Eilish, but there's a road for you. There is a path for you, with your differences. And it's not just, I think people sometimes think of neurodivergence. So neurodivergence is like people who have ADHD, autism, even bipolar disorder. There are different learning differences. There's one I'm thinking of, what I'm trying to think of. sometimes whenever you read the words backwards. But there are different things. It's a spectrum.
That dyslexia?
Dyslexia, thank you. Yeah, dyslexia. So, there's a spectrum of differences in the way that we process information. And so, my sons, or my oldest son, was very good at some things, and some things he struggled with. And I'm like, that doesn't define, your struggles don't define who you are. There are people who have struggles and challenges who become whatever they want to become. And so it was just important for me to gather these people just to show, like, this person has this and here's how they overcame this, and things like that. So that's really how that happened, and I'm really proud of that, because I hope that kids. I know I was speaking at something, the Louisiana Book Festival, and there was a young boy who asked a question. I can't remember what he asked, but his mom was just so happy that there was a book like this. And I was just, whenever you see the impact, or you meet somebody who read something that you wrote, and they're like, oh, this helped me, this and that. Like, oh my gosh, that's what I want. I want you to see yourself in these stories. I want you to feel like you belong, even if you don't feel like that in the world that you're in, or in the school environment that you're
Yeah, so my field of study is psychology. And I did years, in the community, child psychology, working in mental hospitals and everything. I wish I had this book years ago when I had those young clients, those young men trying to find something for themselves. I wish I would have had something like this for those parents back then.
in. Yeah, yeah. And I hope that is helpful, in that people can be inspired by these stories. And it's not just like athletes, it's different people. There are authors. Octavia Butler comes to mind, Kamajini Felix. It's really some amazing people here who are doing great work.
I have an amazing question from the audience, right? How do you suggest parents and educators work with this book in particular?
Oh wow. Hmm. Well, parents, of course, I think that, whenever you get this book, I would hope, and what I've done is to kind of go through it with my son, kind of reading through it, using that example just to make sure that they understand that it's not for you to be exactly like this person. It's to show, like, this is how this person overcame challenges. You are not going to overcome. If you're ADHD, you're going to be ADHD. If you have autism, you're going to have autism. So it's not about overcoming uh a disorder or a type of processing that's different. That's not what this is about. It's about showing how people worked with what they had and overcame. So as a parent, I would read this with my kid. And as far as educators, I love for educators to kind of have this as a resource in the classroom. And eventually, I know a lot of people, for better or worse, because I know people have different opinions. But there is like a neurodivergent or autism month, which I think is in March. I could be wrong. It's March or April. But for those times, because sometimes you can only do it at certain times through curriculum. I had a big issue about, like, are we only doing Black books during Black history? Because ew. But whenever you whenever you have a chance, not to say you have to work with this book during that month, but try to include it in the curriculum. Like, this is nonfiction text that people can analyze. This is about some of these people are famous, quote unquote famous, that they can kind of analyze. This could be used as a biography project. This can be used for kids 8 through 12 to write something or do a project on one of these people, or to learn about the differences, to understand the kids that are around them and not alienate or kind of make them feel like outsiders because they have a different way of processing information. And some of our differences are more physical, some of them are more mental, right? So you never really know what people have. So I think it'll be a really great tool for educators to kind of improve relations in the classroom. And there's so many projects I would, suggest them doing. Like, maybe one day I can write a curriculum for go
Yes,
yeah, go
yes.
back to
We
my
need
old teacher
curriculum.
day.
We need
Yeah,
syllabus, all of that.
yeah, something that they could do, like, really quick, so kids could do a project. Or it's a lot of ways to analyze the text, and I know that's big. Nonfiction, reading nonfiction and teaching them how to analyze and things like that. So yeah, those are my suggestions for that, and hopefully that can happen more and more.
So mental health is talked a whole lot more loosely now.
Yeah.
Celebrities, entertainers talk about it. So my question is, how did you narrow down these figures you chose to write about? It's so wide, the net.
Yeah, there's
How
so
did you
many.
narrow down to this particular selection?
That was hard, Sean. Honestly, I took some people off. I wanted to be inclusive, right? So I wanted to have people from different walks of life, people who've done different things, so that kids can see a variety of people that have done things. It's not just a lot of people associate ADHD with athletes, unfortunately. But they assume that it's like, oh, they're hyper, they're always the best thing to do is put them in sports. And it's like, but that's not always the case. But like David Beckham, he has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So, and he's like one of the goats as far as soccer or athletics, period. But um it took me a while. Honestly, this is probably like number four list of the fourth list of people is what kind of got past everything and published. But yeah, it was hard because there were so many people I wanted to include, but I couldn't have something super long. And that's the thing with like nonfiction. Sometimes there are parameters. It's like, okay, we want it to be this long, or maybe we can reduce it to this. So it's a lot of finagling whenever you're doing nonfiction to kind of fit different things. And then for my book, it particularly was because I could have gone with at least five more people, but I don't know if it would have been too long for, to tell everybody's story. So just trying to be inclusive, trying to touch everything and just show that they have a diversity of careers and differences too, different challenges that people have. I don't want to say challenges, but different types of neurodivergence.
I love in the book, early in the book, you were talking about the stereotypes that come along with neurodivergent. Unfortunately, due to TV shows and books,
Hmm.
people think, oh, this person has a certain thing, so therefore they must be super smart or they super skilled. Or
Yes.
think about those stereotypes and how harmful they are.
Yeah, I think in the book I mentioned when I was growing up, right, we thought of people with autism. We didn't call it autism, and I have a terrible memory. Right now I can't think of what it is. It'll come to me. But we didn't call it autism, but we thought of those people with autism as um like really smart computer guys, the Bill Gates. Remember the movie Rain Man? And that's a
Right.
form of
Yeah.
autism that he
Yeah.
had. So it was like, oh, they're really great, like there's some kind of savant at something, numbers or pianos. And that's not always what that is. Somebody with autism can be a quote unquote regular, whatever regular is, person and have autism or be on the autism spectrum. So I think those kind of stereotypes, and also like I said, with people with ADHD, I know whenever I first started teaching, um, which was a long time ago. I haven't taught in a long time, but like back in like 2010, it was always ADHD was associated with little boys. And we now know that a lot of girls have ADHD as well. It was kind of like that wasn't something that girls were being diagnosed with. So those kind of things like, oh, ADHD, they're hyper, they're this, but ADHD can also be inattentive and not necessarily hyper, just kind of like not paying attention, not kind of being in the moment, different things like that. So, you know, those things and those stereotypes, fortunately, with like you said, people talking about it more, it being more I don't want to say accepted, but that is kind of what it is. It's kind of like everyone knows someone now who has autism. So it's not some like, oh, it's people don't act as off-putting or not kind of wanting to be around as it was a long time ago whenever people were a little strange with dealing with people who were different. So that's a great thing, that inclusivity and talking about differences and talking about mental health and how we affect people with our words and how we exclude them. I think it has opened the doors and made adults and hopefully kids more accepting that people are different. Mhm.
And do you think today's society almost primes us to be attention deficit? Because if I had a camera pointing on me right now, I have this I'm doing with you. I have this on my questions on. The actual book in front of me. I have other things like it's always a lot going on. It's never
It's
just
always
one thing.
it's a
So
lot.
when I'm at work, I train myself to do this. But somebody
Yeah.
on the outside walking up might say, "No, like, are you tripping right now?" I don't realize on both of my monitors, I got two different things happening. I'm doing something else. But to me, this is just normal flow. But then the
Right,
person
right.
brings to my truth, I realize like, wow, I got a lot going on. But that's just, I think most of us are normal. We've made that normal is my point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I wrote an article for Huffington Post about 2 months ago about finding out I was ADHD once I had children. And the reason why the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I was so used to multitasking and being everywhere that I thought that was normal. That was my normal. And so I know a lot of women find out that they have ADHD after their children are diagnosed or once they have children, because a lot of those symptoms that were missed like when they're younger, oh, it comes to the front after you have these babies, or when you're pulled in different directions, you're responsible for everyone. So and autism too. I know a lot of women who are my age who find out, oh, I have autism and ADHD. And that's been really, really interesting. But yeah, I think sometimes because our world is so
It's
busy and
so,
trying to keep up, it becomes our normal, and we have to. It's hard to slow down. It's very hard to slow down in this world. um I don't know how what that's going to look like in the next 20 years, because I do feel like it's a lot of pressure on our kids. um and we see that now. If you were, for me, I taught until 2016, 2017. No, not 2016, 2017 or 18. Ooh, my memory. So from 2010 to 2018, 2017, I saw a huge difference with the type of students that I got. Like 2010, kids were like on it and very, and then it just slowly started changing. Well, technology started changing. In 2010, there weren't so many kids with tablets, and they had them, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So our world changes, our values change, what we prioritize changes, and the amount of pressure these kids are on. That not on, but that have for school and everything is quite different than it was in 2010. Um, so it's interesting to see what everybody will look like in 30 years, and how we will, how do we manage these differences? How do we manage the way we process information and everything in this world, which is becoming more and more neurodivergent?
I think something else from a clinical sense too is all this information being out there. I think instead of people going to get literally diagnosed by clinical professionals, they just seeing something on TikTok where they just say, "Oh yeah, I have that particular syndrome," or "I have," or they're self-labeling, "I'm bipolar," or "I'm this." Like
Yeah,
the net
yeah,
is so wide. Like maybe you not, but you're trying
yeah.
to attach yourself to these things.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, and I have seen that a lot, and there's been a debate about that that I haven't seen recently, but I've seen about people who have been diagnosed versus self-diagnosed. And a lot of people were saying, well, I don't have the money to be no, something just popped up and I was reading it. Yeah. I'm gonna get back to that on autism, because I definitely want to talk about that. But I'm sorry. What was I saying? I was saying that
I was talking about people like trying to self-diagnose via social media and
yeah,
via, you know,
yeah, there was a conversation about that, and some of the people who were self-diagnosed and were saying they didn't have the money for all the tests. And I will say that I think that I've met some people in working with them that labeled themselves everything, and not taken away from anything. This is not to take away from anybody's experiences. This is to say that sometimes the way that you process and you feel so alone and ostracized because you're different, you want to belong to something. So I want to belong to the group that and this person, he was never diagnosed with anything, but I want to belong to this group because I feel this. I feel like I'm that, and I feel like I'm that. And that would explain things, and therefore I belong to something. There's a reason why I'm not processing as fast as this person, or I'm not, and I think there's that sense of belonging, that I didn't belong with the kids that sat at this table, but now in having this and this and this and that, maybe I belong here. So I think some of that was happening, not to take away from anybody's experiences, but I think in all, people try to belong. And I think that's another reason why it's so popular now to be accepting, and also to name things, because people want to have a name and feel like, okay, now I know what's quote unquote wrong. Because, with me or why I'm different. Um, as adults, I don't know if kids feel that way so much. I don't think they really
Yeah.
want to be different. But yeah, yeah,
My,
I definitely see that.
my friends and I debate and joke amongst each other for years because so many people online are so fast to say my ex-boyfriend was a narcissist or my
Oh yeah,
ex-husband was a this. Like they just say it so
narcissist.
easily and
Yes,
fast, like as if, do you know what that even is? What that really even
right.
means? Like, do you really know? You're just throwing it around because it sounds like a buzzword on social media. So, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, they're a narcissist and they're this person, or like maybe you got to stop doing that because it's not fair to the actual people who are.
Who are, and honestly, narcissists and toxic, that's got to be like the buzzwords of 2025. um Narcissist is everywhere, and I think sometimes people don't really know exactly your ex-boyfriend just wasn't a good person or wasn't good to you. That doesn't mean he was a narcissist. I know I've seen a lot of people say, oh, a lot of these I dated, they must have had autism, and it's like, okay, that's a little, you're jumping the gun there because this person acted this way or whatever, and now you're labeling him. So yeah, I do see a lot of labeling and not really quite understanding what, for example, autism is and the spectrum that is autism, and there's different levels to autism. Like I think somebody just posted that like their son is level one, and definitely have experience with that, different types of autism in my house. But yeah, there are levels to this. There are, if you're autistic level one versus level three, you're going to have a very different experience and different needs than someone who is autistic nonverbal level three and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I want to ask you about writing for adults versus children. In 2026, I plan on having a lot more young adult writers on my show. My first time saying
That's
that
great.
publicly.
That's
That's my
great.
goal.
That is great.
But I want to know, for my own writing sake, some of the things you got to consider writing for the youth. And how does that differ versus
Okay. Yeah. Let me speak as an editor. So as an editor, I've worked with lots of publishers, all the top five. I mean, the big five, and some really amazing authors, who've done really well. I would say when you're writing something for a younger audience is to know your audience, right? So there are things that are acceptable in middle grade that are not acceptable in YA or would be considered corny to a YA. YA is your 13 to 17, 18-year old. That's who it's for, even though there are more adults now who read YA, right? But I would say the thing is just kind of knowing your audience, knowing who you're writing for, and also making it to where it's understandable. I think one of the biggest thing, I primarily work on speculative fiction. So that is your fantasy, your sci-fi, your horror. I love horror. So I'm a speculative editor. And what we do are the things that I work on for middle grade and YA is making that sense of fantasy, that sense of speculative pop. That is the thing, that conflict, that high stakes, that is the thing that um really gets your reader. That those kind of things are things you want to kind of focus on if you're writing for that. Now I don't do romance, so I don't know what that is, but I do but I do read a lot of like romantasy, and that's a little bit different. But I would say as far as then whenever I edit adult books, because I haven't written an adult book, but the difference is again audience. So there are certain things that you are going to, of course, write for your adult audience. But the main difference is I think the expectations are a little bit different whenever you're writing for adult and children, middle grade or YA, in that if you're trying to do like traditional publishing, traditional publishers want something different for adult, right? They want something that is like right now romantasy is huge. And again, I'm just speaking for speculative, but romantasy is huge. A lot of times what you're writing has to fit what's popular for traditional publishing. So that's something that I tell people, like when I get new clients, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? You want to self-publish or you want to, traditional, do traditional publishing? And that's something people have to think. If you have a story that's kind of like a cozy mystery, well, are cozy mysteries selling? You can do whatever you want, but are cozy mystery selling because publishers are going to look at what's selling. Unfortunately, they want to make money. It's a business. So I would say writing to your audience is important, but also kind of determining what you want to do. You need to know if you want to go through self-publishing, if you want to write a story for you, and you have a platform and people are going to buy, or if you want to try to do the other route, and then you kind of have to know that it's a business. Like you may, yeah, it's that. I think that's really the main thing. But as far I know, your question was about writing for different audiences or what would be the differences. I would just say just keeping in mind who you're writing for, because sometimes there's a lot more racy scenes in young adult now that it wasn't 5 years ago. So just keeping in mind that your core audience for young adult are young adults, and some of the things they have not experienced, like a lot of this stuff they haven't experienced. I would say that. And also just for any writers who are contemplating putting a book out, kind of thinking about how you want to do things.
Yeah. Do you think that young readers are underestimated in how much complexity that they can handle?
Mm,
And some folks
that's a
try to
great
like
question.
water it down so much for children, but it's like these kids again, they're on devices early, they're on social media,
Yeah.
they're watching things, they're reading things. So they have more of a grasp than we try to estimate them to have.
Yeah. They have and that's something that has been mentioned in a lot of conversations. I will say that, we live right now in a time where a lot of things have been question as far as the books that we're reading. People going through libraries and deciding what is too much and what isn't. And that is a huge problem when you talk about traditional publishing, and also getting books out, because LGBTQIA books and also books that feature Black characters or main characters are always on the chopping blocks for whatever reason. So yeah, that's also something that is important. Like what, and that's a good question. I can't really, that's something that when I'm editing, I let the author make that decision. And whatever you decide as far as which route you want to go to get published, that's you. But it's also like, I was in high school, I read Zane. And we know Zane is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
yeah, I was
Rain
trying
is
to think
fire.
about like kind of, yeah, hot racy romance. It's hot and racy romance. So there's a word for that, but I can't even remember. But what I read that in
This is
high
my
school, that's
show.
not what
Is it smut? Would that be in the
I don't know
smut
if I would
category?
say I don't even know if I would say it's that deep, but it might be there. It might be there. But I
Because
read that
my
early
romance
on.
friends and I talk about the categories a lot. Like this
Yeah,
is smut.
yeah.
And that's great. We love it. You have your
Yeah.
romance, you have your like it's so many
Yeah.
umbrellas in there.
It's so many
But folks
umbrellas.
most
Yeah.
times talk about it like it's one thing. Like no, this is
It's not. It's
it's
not.
again it's spectrum, right? So it's like
Right. And
yeah,
those are things.
they pretty much like getting to it. It's not a bunch of
Oh
character
yeah.
development, not like how they met and then like we pretty much getting to it. You know
It
what I'm
was
saying?
getting
Like
to it. And
yeah,
those are
we
things
getting
that
to it.
we read as in high school. I read saying I don't read, and as an adult, I've never picked anything like that up because I like horror. But in high school I read it. I didn't think it was too much. But nowadays there are things. So whenever I was talking about experiences that teenagers don't have that adults have, like in romanticy, like that often that oh my words, I really do have a bad memory. But like that there are tropes that like best friend to lovers, there's like the triangle, a lot of the triangle things kind of
Yeah.
happen also with young adults, but there are
Yeah.
also certain scenarios that may not be like, I'm 14, I'm like, well, I don't understand that. I understand having a relationship and I love this person, I want to sleep with this person, but I may not understand this and that. So it's up to the author. But I would say that's a hard question to answer as far as like, how much is too much. And I think
Yeah.
publishing, as far as traditional publishing,
Yeah.
they determine how much is too much. But we see
Yeah.
more sex, we see more raciness in YA now than we did whenever I first started doing this professionally 5 years ago.
I know I spoke to a very major young adult writer. No need for a name, but I noticed in her book there were curse words. This is an
Yeah.
award-winning author, So I'm asking her in private, when you're writing, do you consciously make this choice with all the book bans going on and stuff? Or how do you do it? And she would say, man, Sean, I just write. I let them, you
Yeah.
being the editor, I let them think they're gonna change. I just write. I don't try to curtail my writing for what's going on. Like I just write. I thought that was
Yeah.
a very interesting response.
Yeah, that is. And I would say things are more racy now. I would say that a very popular YA book, Blood at the Root, it's very what's the word that I would say? It's exactly how kids talk. And I know like some people in when they read reviews, they were like, oh wow, this is this and that. And everybody, again, this is a bestseller. So everybody got it. Like they got that there were teenagers. And again, when I say teenagers, they were like 18 that were talking about sexual relationships, that were talking like, like my my end, what's up? This is how a lot of teenagers, young black boys talk. So when he brought that to the forefront, there were some people who clutched their pearls, but the overall people got it. So I do think that there's definitely a market for authentic conversation. And I applaud that author, the author of Blood of the Root, Darian Williams. I always applaud what he did and how authentic he was with the characters who are from the South, and how he overcame that whole like initial, oh my God, this is it's kind of like that old boys club with YA sometimes, where it's like, oh, we don't say this, and we do now because it's 2025, things are a little bit different.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
not to date ourselves, but
yeah.
things you would only see on HBO at midnight. That's like daytime, 2 in the afternoon television.
It is. It
Things you
is.
would hear on the
And
radio late at night. That's like you just drive to McDonald's like cooking to a child, and they
yeah.
hearing this. So like they're more exposed to these things, whether
Yeah.
we like it or not. It's there.
Yeah, more exposed, and things that wouldn't have been like twerking wouldn't have been maybe in something, but that's a part of Southern culture for sure. I don't know what people do in Wisconsin, God bless them, but down here, that's the way we have been doing. So it's very interesting. Every author kind of determines that. I mean, are they right? Like you said, they kind of write what they write, and a lot of times an editor will come through and say, maybe tone this down a little bit, and it's up to them to kind of decide what they want to do on that.
Let me ask you a very unique question. I love having my editors on the show because few of the greatest writers of all time were also editors, like Toni Morrison, some of these people. What
Ooh,
are some of the
yeah.
advantages you have having that editor's brain as you're writing? Like, is that like a large gift? Is it like a hindrance? Like, how do you feel about having both of those brains at once?
Whoa. I will say so. One of the things that I finished up for this year is a fiction project, or a Southern Gothic fantasy that I'm hoping to go on sub, which means submitting it to different houses for them to potentially buy.
Yes,
And
Lord.
I also, yeah, thank you. So I
Pray on
finished
that.
that. Um, so I will say in writing that, it was a lot easier for me to do because I've edited so much speculative fiction that I already knew the tropes. There are certain things that kind of hit, your first 100 pages, and then act two hits at around a certain page. There's like a dance that happens when you're writing speculative fiction that's kind of embedded in my head, that I know, okay, it's time for this to happen. It's time for the conflict. But so in writing nonfiction, and I was an editor for nonfiction at Fire, but I primarily work with fiction. So in writing nonfiction and the research and making sure you have credible sources, you making sure that you write everything down, and making that's actually harder than writing the fiction, because I never want to pull something that I'm reading and I'm like, oh, this seems legit. And I'm like using a fact, not just like writing about somebody, and it's not. Or saying something, taking something out of context. So it's way harder to do something like the Muhammad Ali Malcolm X book. Writing it for a younger audience was way harder than me like flying through this Southern Gothic fantasy, because I'm used to how that goes. And people would say, well, nonfiction sounds like it would be easier, but it's not. It's a lot of
No.
research. And yeah, and you want to be correct. You want to make sure that people can go and find, if you said something, they're going to go back and say, oh, let me go look and see if this is right. And they should. People should do that. So it's a lot more like, let me make sure this right. Let me say this with the amount of nuance that. So, for example, for the Malcolm X Muhammad Ali book, some people were taken back by the title. the fatal friendship, right? But that's the title of the adult book, and I think that the movie was Blood Brothers,
Yeah,
right? The
the
Netflix.
blood brothers. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So people were like, well, why, but that was the title of the adult book. So I didn't have much choice on that. But the way that I wanted to write or explain the nuance of their relationship to an 8 through 12-year-old person, I had to make sure that it was, authentic, and also that it was something that if they needed to look up, they can see examples of why I wrote it that way. That's quite different, as for an editor's mind that primarily works in fiction. My head is kind of like tell the story, the narrative part of it, the story. But when you're doing narrative nonfiction, it's not just a story, it's more so like tell the story, make it interesting, but it better be factual, and it better have the nuance, because there's an academic out there that will point out something that's not right, rightfully so. So yeah, I would say that it's just kind of easier, as an editor, to kind of write in the genre that you primarily edit in versus, something else that you also want to write, but it may take a little bit or be more challenging, which I like the challenge.
And you know what else too? When I interviewed the writer, who's the Ophelia, she's a a church lady. She told me about how much scrutiny she had to be under. Was fictional writing. Things had to be like accurate. And I couldn't believe
Yeah.
that in the fictional world, it was that scrutinized. It's fiction. I mean, you think in fiction, I can just write whatever I want
Yeah.
to. But she couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. See that, and that's an interesting. I don't know what genre that person writes in, but I found that, so for me, I also write like short horror stories, but I talk about Louisiana culture in it. So like I had a story that about Boudin. So in addition to writing a
Yeah.
story, Boudin was, yeah, Boudin
Half
was
of
in
it,
it.
half of today. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm a little jealous because where I am now, we don't have good Boudin. But but I wrote about it, and then I explained it. I wrote like a nonfiction essay about the history of Boudin and explaining it and everything else. And I say that to say, whenever I was writing the fiction part, I wasn't so concerned about this and that and this and that. But I can see how there are some things that you write that has to be kind of on it. You don't want to say something too out of it. Like I do fantasy, so that's a little bit different. But like you don't want to say something if it's grounded or something that's happening. You don't want it to be too out of the way. Because we've all read books. I don't want to call anybody out, but we've read books that I kind of side-eyed. Like there's one book I'm thinking about, and there was something that happened in Louisiana, and they said something that was absolutely let me know that this person didn't do the research. Not only was she not from Louisiana, but she didn't do the research. And I'm like, oh, you should have hired me, because I would have caught that and I would have told you to kind of change that. So yeah, some things, people scrutinize, and also movies too. There were some things in different movies, and I know everybody has felt this, that you're watching this movie and somebody's like, "Oh, I'm from home in Louisiana," and they have a twang like they're from North Louisiana or Arkansas. And it's like that is not how that person would talk at all. So yeah, things like that. It needs to be factual and based in reality.
I love using Louisiana as a microcosm for Africa, right? Like, Africa
Mm,
is so huge, so many cultures and languages, but people speak about it like it's just one thing. So when a
yeah.
person that's not from here speak about Louisiana, like it's all like, okay, New Orleans, right? Then for the weekend, frying gumbo, different places. Their gumbo is very different than 337.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
certain
is.
other foods that people just say, oh, Louisiana is this. Like between North
No, it's different.
Louisiana and then toward Baton Rouge and then Lafayette, then we spoke of other places before the show. That's way different conversation. In
Absolutely.
our
And yeah,
language, our culture, our music,
our
there are so
music
many
is different.
nuances depending on where you are in Louisiana. You can't just put a big umbrella on it like that's Louisiana. Like no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good that's a very good point. I didn't think of it like that, but it is very similar to that in different areas, different regions, dialect, different things that we say that is very different. And also, like, I'm in the 225 area now, being from Lafayette. If I go somewhere, just for an example, and I'm like, oh, they have smothered okra on the menu. I love smothered okra. they have smothered okra on the menu, and I get there and it's like not smothered. It was like whole okra. It's in big pieces of tomato. I'm like, this is succotash. This is not smothered.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God. We can talk
Just
all
messed
day
up the
about
whole thing.
food. We can talk all
Yeah.
day about this.
Neither. So that's just an example. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying and never thought of it in that context. But it is similar to how Africa is different.
I guess being in the military, some of the places I was stationed at, I was the only Louisiana person in the whole ship or the whole whatever.
Ah.
So like whenever the movie The Water Boy came out, I was pissed off. Whenever the movie
Yeah.
Princess and the Frog came out, Disney, I was
Uh-huh.
mad about that because so many things that they're doing is like they're making a caricature out of stuff.
They do. They do. And they do. And then it's like all of y'all. That's why I said, I don't know if I said that here. They always think that we're always just crawfish in boats. Like, I
Yeah,
think somebody
yeah,
asked me that a
yeah.
while, like a long, long time ago, like y'all ride boats or P-rolls. So I'm like, what? Like, what is this, 1902? Like, why would you think that I need to take a P-roll to go to really? So, just different things like that. It is crazy.
I want to ask you some more questions about Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X because you and I had spoken and scheduled this show prior to me even knowing you did that part. So when I realized it, my eyeballs just lit up. Like I just love Malcolm X so much. So my question is, when you first got this project, got it solidified, how did you feel about it? And like, you had any kind of pressure, any kind of weight? Like these are two giants in history. How did you feel about it?
I like telling this story. I'm gonna try to shorten it. So,
Come on, give me the full thing. Give me the full thing.
okay. So the way I got this story, and this is something that people should know when you're a writer. So I auditioned for this story. My agent submitted the proposal for everything but typical to this publisher, and they didn't want everything but typical, but she liked my writing and she wanted me to audition for this. Um, so I was like, I don't know about that. I was not really, that's not what we were looking for at the time. Didn't think it was something. It was really quick. It was something I had to do, create a sample and do in 2 weeks. I'd already read the book. I have the adult version because I like Malcolm X as well. Um, so I said I could do it, but I don't really want to do it. It just seems like it's rushed. It's not really what I wanted to do. I had a dream about Malcolm X. I had a dream about him on a book cover. And so I know this is so crazy, but I'm like a big dream person. So when I woke up, I said, I think I'm supposed to write this story. I think I'm supposed to write this adaptation because that's what that was the audition. And it just flowed. I reread like the first chapter of the adult book, and I'm like, I know how I want to tell this story. I know how, and a lot of it has to come from the source material, right? Because that's their book. But I knew what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say, and it was just and I got the audition, so I got it. So sometimes with nonfiction, there are projects, especially something like this that was a movie or adult project that you kind of have to audition for. Um, and that was the case for this. But I really wasn't going to do it, and I dreamed about it. I'm like, okay, I think that means that I'm supposed to do this. And just it was very emotional. I hadn't read the adult book in a few years, but I read it. Um, I've watched a lot of things with Malcolm X. It was very emotional for me to write this. And the last chapter, the last chapter or the epilogue, I can't remember which, that was more of me, more of like not really taking this kind of like going in that narrative way. Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling the
Yeah.
story because his whole
Read it this
death.
morning. I was reading it this morning. Fire,
Oh yeah, yeah.
fire, fire.
That's like more of me not taking. And the editor was like, "Wow, this brought tears to my eyes." I was like, I was crying when I was typing because his death was so. And everybody knows. Everybody's probably watched the movie, read about Malcolm X. The death and everything surrounding it was just so incredibly um touching, more than touching. Like really, really did something to me when I was younger, and I learned about that. And then watching the movie, I didn't read the autobiography of Malcolm X until I was in college. So, just everything about Malcolm X, what he stood for, the way that he expressed himself. So it was just very emotional for me. So I'm really proud of that book. It's an adaptation. It's not something that, it's somebody else's work that I adapted. And if I ever do anything else about Malcolm X, I want it to be me. But that
Yeah,
end,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I really got into it and kind of reading and watching some old footage and just, oh, that's just such an amazing, it's an amazing story. Malcolm
Yes, it
X
is.
was really amazing, and
Yes, it
everybody
is.
knows this, but their friendship, like my grandmother's 94, and she didn't realize how close their relationship was. She was like, I didn't know they were that close, and I was like, and I, explained some of it was them purposely separating them once everything happened, and kind of him and so older people learning about this and kind of like saying like, oh wow, I saw, I didn't think about that when it was going on. She was there, she was alive during this time and listened to Malcolm X. And my grandmother also was somebody in her community who was a first to work at the paper mill in Bastrop, Louisiana, or the first black woman. Well, no, she was the first black woman for full time. My cousin was actually the first black woman. But she was in her own right doing things and involved with the NAACP at that time. So whenever she kind of read over this or was asking me questions about it, just to kind of hear her take on things versus how it really it was also very interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed writing it and working on
I
that
want to,
project.
I want to take some time to speak on the importance of adaptations because I've been telling my
Mm,
adult friends for the past few years, we need these stories put into a digestible format. Because besides the children, a lot of adults not going to read a 400-page mathematics. They're not going to read
yeah.
like Clint Smith did How the Word is Passed recently, the children's version.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ibrahim Chinta did mathematics early in the year. He did Barracuda last year. Like we
Yeah.
need these adaptations. So talk about the importance of that if you can.
Yeah. I absolutely believe in more adaptations. I think that we have statistics, we have information that shows that most adults don't read past a certain level. I think it's a middle grade level. And that's just where we are. That is how we've been conditioned. That's where we are. So I think we need to meet people where they are. And when we're talking about doing more education about Black history, because that's come up a lot, especially with all the things that's going on. So when we talk about doing more and being more inclusive and spreading it, we do need to have adaptations because you're absolutely right. I've met so many people, if you're not a reader, you're not going to want to sit down and read 400 words. It doesn't matter how intellectual you are, whatever. And some people just don't have the time. It's a turnoff when they see these huge books. So I think adaptations are really good. Something that's digestible, 200 words or a little bit over. 200 pages or a little bit over are very helpful for everyone. It's easy for a parent to talk about something with their kid if they're able to digest it too. Um, and still go to work. Like they it's a lot when you're parenting. So maybe you don't have time to sit down and read something that's super long. But I'm really big on that in a way to which we can expand our knowledge about our ancestors and our purpose. I think that's what that will build a stronger community for us if we start having more of those, ingesting more of those, and kind of
Yeah,
talking about it,
yeah.
with different age groups.
Um, what's the nature of my show and my show? Focus on African history, African American history. I covered a lot of biographies because I wish that all those books had a young adult adaptation. They were all phenomenal, unsung heroes. And I know the
Mhm.
average person is not going to sit down with them.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
wish they all had a young adult adaptation.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, maybe when things change, because right now, and everybody kind of can see this, whether you follow publishing news or not. There aren't a lot of books being sold. People are not. There's a lot of things going on. People are struggling in different ways, financially or whatever, with everything that's going on, and a lot of books are not being sold. Everything turns around. I'm a firm believer that the sun always shines. Like there will be another time where it will be back up, will be things will be where they need to be. So when that happens, and hopefully it'll be soon, we need to be ready. We need to have these things ready, these proposals ready. There are a lot of wonderful young adult, middle grade nonfiction authors who are working on proposals now, and I'm very happy to see like people are. are working, even though they're like, well, people aren't buying this, but I'm gonna have it ready when it's time. And I think that's just how we need to
Yes,
be as a community. We need to
yes,
be ready because there will be a time when we're going to be
yes.
called on, and we need to be ready.
Come on, man. And start speaking about it in terms of like the movie industry and books because we see that every single streaming platform, they want their own original content. And
Hmm.
so every year I get excited because more and more books are being adopted to be on Netflix and Hulu and Paramount. And so I tell all my writing friends that, man, keep writing because
Hmm.
they want to have fresh content.
Yeah, yeah.
So people in Hollywood, they're still the right out ideas, I guess. I don't know. But the book, they're going to the books now. All the major TV series are. It's open book.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and that's a part of being ready, right? We see so many creators who are on social media telling us what's going on in that space. There are a few people that I follow, um, and just trying to understand what's going on. Like, why aren't we seeing, like you said, there are a lot of books being adapted, a lot of them aren't black. And that's fine, everybody, whatever, but we need black stories. I know you remember back in the 90s, we had so many amazing stories. We had Friday, we had The Best Man, we had so many amazing
Yeah.
stories.
The names was
And
popping,
so,
man. Waiting next
yes,
hand.
yeah,
I said I got a
exactly.
groove back. All black book.
And those are
Once
books,
again,
and
black
those are
book.
from books.
Black
So
book.
when we talk about, adapting books for the screen, I know some authors right now who have some amazing, amazing books. One author that just came to mind, Yasmin Anjo, and the book is right there. Yasmin's gonna be like, if she sees this, but yeah, but
We love a
she
good
has,
bookshelf. We love a good bookshelf in the background. We love
oh
it.
yeah,
We love
but
it.
she has a book about a black assassin, an international assassin, um Anina Knight. And that book, if you get a chance to read that, you should read it. But that black assassin, she's a wonderful, it's a badass book, I'm telling you. International like syndicate of assassins, all black. But that's something that should be on TV. And
I
it's
gotta find that. I gotta find that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love stuff like that. I gotta find that.
yeah. So, the work has already been done. And that's why I say we have to be ready, because all of these people that's doing stuff and it's not selling right now, book adaptations to film, but also people who are doing short films, people who, I know Tanana Reed do is doing a short film. There are people who are doing the work. And when it's time, I just feel like it's just going to be like, what do you have? Because we want to green light everything. So
Yeah.
we just have to be ready. Because we have some amazing people doing amazing work, and we need to get it seen.
You know what's something new too again? Back to our attention span being manipulated, right? And the industry knowing this. In
Mm.
social media land lately, it's something called like vertical feed. Vertical feed.
Mhm.
They're micro cities. And they're made for TikTok. They're made for Instagram. So a reel might be what, 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's series that's made for it.
Yeah.
Again, they're gonna need characters. They're gonna need writers. They're gonna need script writers. They're gonna need
Yeah.
all of that. So like you said, staying abreast of what's going on. Like when that next thing
Hmm.
cracks, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So honestly, I'm just really looking forward to everything. I really, I am a person who really looks forward to things. It's kind of like, yeah, I'm a big believer, and I see Tanya just put the pendulum is gonna swing back for sure. I'm a big believer in that. I've seen that being in this industry on the other side for a few years, whenever Black Lives Matter happened,
Yep.
the movement in George
Full
Floyd
floor. Mhm.
publishing was like, oh, we are recommitting to publishing black stories, getting editors. That's how I came in to work for traditional publishing. They wanted black editors, people who had experience, but also like, okay, there's this push for black editors. That's no longer there. That push is not there. You look at the hiring practices, but I feel like it's going to happen again, because when that happened, it hadn't happened before. You said earlier about Toni Morrison, who was an editor, and there are various reasons why she left, but she was one of what, two, if I remember correctly. There weren't, maybe three, but there weren't black people who are greenlighting stories. So it's the same in Hollywood, the same in publishing. we need to sit at both sides of the table. We need to be the creators, and we also need to be in charge of who gets to tell those stories, who gets those green lights, who's allowed entry.
I had one more publishing industry question before we get out of here, right? How does the publishing industry determine the best time to release children's books, considering school calendars, marketing cycles, and curriculum changes, for an example?
Oh wow. So how they determine the best time. So usually I can speak for traditionally published books, right? So usually if you sign a deal, it's a 2-year process, right? It's 2 years before your book actually goes to the public, it's published. Publishers sometimes determine the best time based on it, and it's hard because you will see books kind of their publishing date shift. So with everything but typical, my publishing date shifted twice. Um, so it's kind of hard to determine what's good. So for example, the election cycle, there was a book I was working on that was supposed to come out whenever that was during whenever the most recent election cycle. What was that? Trump versus Kamala. That was Trump versus Kamala. And we felt like at that time, listening to the author and other things, that might not be the best time to put this book out because there are some political things in there. And it might just, the whole election thing would overshadow it. So I would say with publishers, sometimes closer to the time you thought that something was going to come out, they kind of pull back according to what's going on. They might want to put out a book. As you know, like with movies, a lot of times they re-release a book um, whenever they have the film adaptation or to kind of align it with the news because it's a business. It wants to get the best bang for the buck, right? And
They
as
put the
far as
brand new
like
cover on the book, stuff like that.
yeah, they'll do like so for like Fannie Lou Hamer or not Fannie Lou Hamer, my African American history book is now a box set. It's in a box set with some other books about different things in history. So that's a repackaging too, because they saw like it was the African American history book like did a lot of numbers. And because of that and some other things, or I guess people were interested in it. It came out at a time when people were looking for books like that, and they're like, "Oh, we can package it with this and that, and we can get more bang for our buck." That's what they do. You asked about how they connected with curriculum. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. Now that I'm not really sure. I think the only time I've seen that done was like kind of author led. But I'm sure publishers kind of determine that too, and maybe that's determined on a need more so than like something that's already planned. In my roles, I've never set in or planned anything like that, so I don't know how they do that. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
I had a question about the horror genre. You love horror. You said it a few times.
yeah.
Who are some of your favorite writers in the horror genre?
Oh, um, well, I mentioned Tanana Reeve Do. I really um The Reformatory is one of her newer works, or the newest work.
Yes,
Yeah,
I love her as well.
yeah, very talented short stories, amazing, just an amazing all around author, creator. Now that she's going into films and stuff like that, so I'm really really excited to. I actually got a sneak peek at her short film. Um, I felt like so exclusive, but I was like, oh my god. And so
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
one of
yeah.
my yeah, she's one of my favorites. I also like Grady Hendrix, who is I think I have like two books of his, but I can't think of the names of them. One of them was like The School for Wayward Girls or something like that. He's kind of funny.
I heard of that.
Yeah. Those are probably my two favorite. I'm reading right now. What's the name of the book I'm reading? The one by Stephen Graham Jones about the Buffalo Hunter.
Oh
Um,
yeah. What
I
about that?
literally just started that this morning, so I'm
What
not too
about that?
far, but
Okay.
that's one of the ones Barack Obama was on Barack
Yep.
Obama's list, and I heard
Exactly.
some great things about that.
Yeah. Let me know.
So
Let me know.
yeah, yeah. So mostly them, and I read a lot of like short stories by different people, which so many. There's a Substack that's called, what is the name of her Substack? EA Noble is her name, and somebody's gonna correct me, but if you look for EA Noble on Substack, she's on there, and she has an amazing Southern Gothic horror series or her novel that is just it takes place in Mississippi, and she's just really great. A lot of people on Substack that I follow because I'm on Substack. But yo, those are my three that I'm just like really kind of always looking
Let
forward to
me
what they're doing next.
let
But
me
yeah,
give you one, right? Let me give you one. This book I
okay.
read it 2 weeks ago. It's contended for my book of the year in the fictional category. The book called Blood Slave.
Oh,
Blood
I have
Slave.
that one. I haven't started it yet. It's good.
Amazing. If you can,
Oh,
I don't know if you like audio books or not. I love audio books. The audio narrator is so good. I could
oh,
not stop playing. I could not stop listening to it. Like the book is so good. I will have him on the show probably in February or March. We talked recently. I'm gonna have him on the show in March. I can't wait to that episode. That book is
oh,
so good. It's on the black slaves, black
yeah.
vampires, and our history and a lot of things. Like it's a wonderful story.
I have it. It's right there. So I haven't started yet. I buy books to support. And sometimes I don't get around to reading it with all this, like trying to edit other books. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to
yeah,
reading
yeah.
it.
But I mentioned Sinners so much this year because it's like when that one movie came out, so many black stories started resurfacing when it comes to our tales, again, our traditions, culture, spirituality, our horror stories. There always been amazing black writers in horror, but it's like that movie put them back to the forefront. And it was just book links every day being posted. And I really hold those
Yeah.
writers out their credit and their just do writing stories just like that.
Yeah, I honestly, in May, I started my Substack, my horror Substack called Haintland. Um, and these are like I've mentioned earlier. I've been writing short stories since high school. All the stories that I started with were stories I had already written. So I was like, I had one every other week, and then I'm like, oh shoot, I'm out of stories. So I've recently had to start, like creating my own. But Sinners really opened the door for what we've already known, but it made it more national. And it's like, oh, let me check out some of these Southern, especially Southern Gothic, these writers. And of course, that's always a wonderful thing. I'm really looking forward to what happens in 2026 because Sinners was popular, and a lot of times, the next year you see books that are kind of similar or more of something in that trope or that type of story. So I'm interested to see how
That's
that
like
aligns with publishing.
whenever the Black Panther came out years ago, the first Black Panther, the wave of things that came about because of
Yes.
Afrofuturism,
Yep.
Octavia Butler, a lot of these other writers, like Emerson, like
Yeah. Yeah.
the industry kind of sort of like, y'all like this, we'll give y'all that. Y'all like this.
Yeah.
So whenever these things explode, I'm always just paying attention. Here come the wave.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, they repackage it. So, a book that came out in shoot, when I was younger, they'll repackage it based on like, okay, well now everybody's into Black Power or want these speculative stories with kind of a Black history bent or ancestral bent. Um, and so now we're going to repackage. We're going to push Octavia Butler. You saw a lot of more of Octavia Butler with new packaging, some additional stories. So yeah, it is interesting what will come from Sinners. And I hope they buy my book. But I hope I hope that we see more of these stories because people obviously want
Yeah, yeah.
it.
Yeah. I'll give you one more, right? The sister, rest in peace, the ancestor, L.A. Banks, has a 13-book vampire story. I read it like in '05. That was. Amazing story.
Oh,
I've never seen vampires look like that. Like vampires.
what did you say the name was? Because I'm gonna write
L.A.
it down.
Banks. L.A. Every
L.A. Banks.
L.A. Banks.
Okay.
Every
Yeah, I'm
October,
gonna
whenever all the books come out about spooky season, I'm always pushing her name to the front for some reason. I mean, she passed before the social media age and all that stuff. I
yeah.
think she be mentioned more when it comes to vampires. She has a 6-book werewolf series. Amazing.
Hmm.
She got different genres, and she's just amazing, incredible. And she did a good
And
job of choosing. various spiritual systems, and two, to verify well we work. So it's kind of hard to separate like facts from fiction. Blends it
Yeah.
seamlessly, like it's amazing. Like,
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad you mentioned that. I've definitely put that in my phone because I'm always looking for new stories. And like right now, like it's a holiday break, it's Christmas. I'm not editing anything, so I'm trying to read like two or three. Not just the same, I always get a Grady Hendrix book. I read so much of him, I don't even remember the names. I just know it's in my Kindle or I'm buying it. If I see that he has something else, I know I'm gonna like it. But I want to open up to not just my same, the same people, or I watch a lot of horror movies. I'm always looking for new horror movies. But then I'm also always going back to the old ones because it's the nostalgia of growing up watching horror, and it's like, ooh, that's what I'm gonna watch today, just horror. It's like,
I'm glad you
yeah,
said that because from Jordan Peele doing Get Out, and
yeah,
Us, the series of him. I don't know who made that series. I don't know who made it. But like so much of our horror is our social issues, our social trauma. So it's something that our everyday life is hard for most people.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
also a scary movie? There is no and the horror is is the black person is black.
yeah. Yeah, I think that, and somebody mentioned that on social media because what was popular recently was Welcome to Dairy, and a lot of what we saw, because I
Yeah,
had comments, I had comments, but a lot of what we saw was black trauma on display. And some of it was a little bit egregious, but for the sake of like horror, it's like most of this horror was done to black bodies, so it was a lot. And a lot of time our history is the basis on horror, and our experiences in life um is the basis of a horror story.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't think that that's always necessary. I think that we do. Let's see, that's a whole nother, I can go into that, but we do ghosts differently, right? We have a different appreciation um to our ancestors, or for our ancestors, than some other cultures.
yeah.
So we do that differently. It's not always trauma. Sometimes it's just like generational curses, which it can affect anybody. But it's not so much. A generational curse could be white, black, purple. It doesn't have to be the trauma of like on it watching. And I don't want to give it away for anybody who didn't watch it, but watching a massacre in this magical world of everything going on, and there were some people who were kind of protected from that. It was troubling to me. And even if you read Stephen King, because of course we've read Stephen King, I've read It, The Shining, and all of those things a long time ago. But seeing it on television and watching our people, like a group of our people who are living their life and having a great time, be massacred the way that they were, it was troubling. And I don't know if that's necessary for all horror. I don't know if Jordan Peele's Get Out was great because it was an experience, a black trauma experience, in a modern context, right? But I think that putting black bodies on display for the sake of horror porn, I think we could do a better job with that. I think that everybody would, studios greenlight this kind of thing, but I think we can write stories that are a little more nuanced when we talk about our history and our experience.
Yes, ma'am. Question for 2025. Here we go. Since you're reading a little, I love to ask my right. How do you?
How do I read? Um, ooh. So this is probably gonna be weird. But I'm gonna just tell you, I don't read every word. So the way that I read, my mind fills in the blanks. So I'm neurodivergent. My mind fills in the blanks. I can kind of see where a story is going. I can often say like I know what they're gonna say. So I can kind of read quickly in that way. However, what I've started doing, just because I'm trying to break into a genre. I'm trying to kind of change the things that I write. I've began to take notes while I'm writing. So the way that I read has been more yeah, yeah. So I'm doing more of that more. And it's kind of reading not just for entertainment, it's reading to kind of and I'm really trying to ingest it because I read so much and so quickly that sometimes I don't remember what I read. I just know that I liked it. I might not even remember the name of the story until somebody brings it up and I'm like, or the name of the book. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this and this happened and I liked it. But my brain, because it goes so quickly, I don't. So I'm just taking more of an effort to ingest the information, the way the story rolls out, especially nonfiction, but the way the story rolls out, the way the narrative um, kind of curves around, and how these authors, the craft of it, just kind of more of an appreciation for how this is written than I've done in the past. So just writing things in the margin, which I used to hate, writing things in the margin, but I usually have my little I have notebooks everywhere. And so
Yeah.
I'll write it or I'll put it in my phone now. So it's more of a learning experience now than just solely entertainment.
So I love asking myself this question because it's like, when you read personally, you're so technical, so I know you got to read way different something versus holiday break. The kids are sleeping. That's a way different. Sure, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's something. I also I want to say that I'm trying to get more into poetry. Um I've never poetry was very
Yeah.
yeah, I know poetry was very hard for me because I was like one of those people that didn't get it. And maybe that's because of the way my mind processes things. Like I would always be feel like, okay, then what? And that's not necessarily it's not a good or bad thing, but I think I shied away from a lot of poetry and a lot of enjoyment of like Maya Angelou. I didn't enjoy those things. And now I'm trying to understand, how this is written, and I'm trying to just be a better reader because I want to be better in different genres. And I'm trying to do that. I have Jamie Mays's book, The Ode to Black Women.
Yes.
So
Friend,
yeah,
friend, small.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, just trying to really be a reader across
I love
all the genres. Yeah.
it. But all season long this year, I asked my author got a big or small because the audience to see how we all read.
Yeah.
So why? So one way to do it. I've had some interesting answers all year long about
Yeah.
go about you know. I do a lot of note-taking, a lot of writing in the bottom, and highlighting. I'm all over the place. But I just
Yeah.
by the time I do an interview, I do that book front to back. Like, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the way to go, and I'm getting better at that, and I'm glad I'm starting to do that instead of just like it's a difference between ingesting something and consuming, right? So it's just like a lot of like consume, consume, consume. I read 50 books, but like yeah, what are they about? you know? So it's more yeah.
I'm
It's
glad you
it's
said that because here in December, at that time of year on social media, people love to talk about I read 175 books and 500 books. And that's great. I'm context, but what did you really gain? It's always,
yeah.
I mean, is it empty calories? Really, what is it?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I am now. Just really trying to enjoy the ride, and especially when I'm not working, it's like okay, I want to enjoy it, but I also want to ingest it. I want to use some of these tools for things that I do.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
I'm gonna give you a poet sister, my favorite of all time, Jasmine May. Jasmine May.
Jasmine May.
Man, M.S.
Okay.
Her book called Black Girl Poet. You can find on YouTube the pieces, but her poetry is so powerful in her voice, her cadence, and the rhythm. Even her written, she taught me how to have these minimal words. She can have minimal words, but have so much power. I want to kind of practice because I can't talk. I can't be a wordsy person. Trying to have
Yeah.
economy of words. Bring that down. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you're giving me some recommendations because
It's an educational show, so I love kind of drop.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time, your patience, and your wonderful interview with me along with the book. Thank you for everything. My last guest of the year. If anybody watching the show, this is the last show for the year. See you in 2026. I'll have to February already. You'll see shows right now. And, hope people praying and running. Love doing this show. One of the most important parts of my life. And, think anybody watching this show for y'all. Attention is time.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate what you're doing and I really look forward to meet you or chat with you
Yeah,
again
yeah,
at another time.
yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Let
you.
me find some good gumbo. We come back to the
All
thing.
right. All right. When I come home, absolutely.
So let me know. It's all good time. We're gonna find something together.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm rolling with you. All
Thank
right.
you. Have a good night. Have a good holiday.
You
So,
too. You too. Happy holidays to you and your family.
thank you
Thank you.
next year.
All right. Thank you.